Thank you, Adam.
I'm looking at the screen now.
So I'm Betsy Whitmore, library trustee and a friend of the library, Holderness Library, and I'm just filling in this evening for Kathy Weymouth, who is a very busy lady, and she just left this Zoom meeting to attend another board meeting, and she basically didn't realize that she had double booked herself. But since the library meeting is going to be recorded, she felt that she could find out what everything that Dan O'Neill had to say. Oh, sorry about the phone. I hope my husband gets it. He's got it, good. So pardon that, can't help it. So Dan O'Neill, I think probably everybody in Holderness and Plymouth knows his name, and probably 3/4 of the people who are on this Zoom meeting have met with him either socially, professionally, or in some other way. I know, as I said before, I have not needed to go to Dan professionally for his professional knowledge, but I have met him hiking in the woods or riding his bike or up at Woodsy Stock or here and there doing the things that we all do in this lovely lakes region. So Dan is going to talk with us tonight about a topic that must be very close to his heart, fitness, and how that affects academic achievement and your entire healthy lifestyle. He has a new book out, Survival of the Fit, and the subtitle is How Physical Education Ensures Academic Achievement and a Healthy Lifestyle. The program will take about an hour, and there'll be time at the end of the meeting for questions through your chat feature at the bottom. And so with that, I turn the meeting over to Dan, and I'll silence myself.
Oh, thanks, Betsy. And it's just obviously my great pleasure to present this webinar regarding the new book, Survival of the Fit, especially being here with my friends and neighbors, Holderness and beyond. The book is available for pre-buy and it's coming out next Friday. So I have watched this growing health crisis in our children from a front row seat as a doctor and surgeon. And by being here tonight, like it or not, you're all deputized into the physical education revolution. So in the next few minutes, we're going to go through a few slides, and then we should have plenty of time for questions and your comments. So this is not news. We have a big problem, but we are not responding. We are not reacting. We are not expressing horror at this obesity crisis. This younger generation is going to have a shorter lifespan than the previous. No one's been able to say that since the Black Plague. Agriculture was the first death knell, if you will, in terms of poor health. So we were hunter-gatherers, we were doing great, we were healthy, we were strong. And again, if you avoided the odd leopard attack or hippo pulling you under, you were pretty healthy. 10,000 years ago, once we started agriculture, things went downhill. The Industrial Revolution was the next death knell. Processed foods are folks from Swanson and Birdseye, but then the worst one, arguably perhaps now, is the computer revolution. When we were kids, when I was a kid, and you'll excuse me as I talk to everyone as if they were my age, and for the younger folks out there, there might be one or two. Anything you don't understand, you can ask your parents. But we were worried, they were worried about smoking with us, and they were worried about us getting emphysema and lung cancer when we're 50 and 60 and 70. Today, these kids are sick now. They are not waiting until they're adults with their bad habits. They are sick now. These kids have diabetes and high blood pressure and all these things we talk about as Western diseases or diseases of civilization that adults get, but these children have them. I mentioned measles here, and I put that in because we really have no sense of proportion. We made a big deal last year when we had a few hundred kids dying of measles, which, don't get me wrong, is not a good thing, and there's no excuse for it since we have an immunization for it. We have a vaccine for it. However, that was in the news all the time, and yet this obesity crisis, what's going on in our with our children, with a huge proportion, a huge percentage of our kids, nobody's talking about. Again, we are hunter-gatherers, and we haven't changed. We're still hunter-gatherers. We're supposed to be walking or running 9 to 12 miles a day. We're supposed to eat unprocessed foods. We're supposed to eat what nature gives us. But the problem now is kids can go from the cradle to the grave without moving. They don't play outdoors. They don't play together. They don't do pickup games. They don't walk to school. They don't burn calories. And what my book is all about is where we can burn some of those calories, and we can teach these kids or maintain in these kids what I call physical identity in a physical education class. They have been cut. And oh, by the way, when you graduate from school, you're not going out and working on the farm. You're not working in the steel mills. You're getting a blue collar or a white collar job. But even the blue collar jobs today are light. You're hitting computer buttons. So here's the problem. We have this two-headed monster of processed foods and screen time. And oh, by the way, it's not even processed foods anymore. Now we're dealing with ultra-processed foods. Sorry. The people we have fighting against us are smarter and have more money than we do. I'm amazed how many parents, we're talking about smart, capable people, and they've given up fighting with their kids about things like food and screen time. And the reason is because they're losing that battle, because on the other side of that screen are thousands and thousands of really smart people spending money to make sure your kids stay on that screen. So it's really not a fair fight. I'm going to talk about the athlete, non-athlete divide a little bit later. But here's my solution for the crisis. We have to use the weapons we were born with. A 2-year-old child does not sit in a chair. A 2-year-old kid is in motion. He's playing. She's out like any other animal, engaging. Even octopi, who we separated from 250 million years ago in evolution, are out playing. Animals are born with what I have defined as a physical identity that makes them want to explore, to touch things, to use all 5 senses and engage with the world around them. Unfortunately, in the 21st century, a majority of our children have their physical identity driven out of them. Now, I apologize, as I know I'm speaking oftentimes to the converted, but I would hope many of you, as well as your friends and family, have intact physical identities. But the fact is, the majority of the US population and the population of Western Europe, this is simply not true. And obesity is not just an aesthetic problem. It's linked with a host of diseases, including diabetes, high blood pressure, depression, and oh, by the way, COVID-19 is striking at obese people in a far greater proportion than non-obese people. And if this isn't bad enough, these people are costing the rest of us money, and we're talking about billions and billions of dollars. The normal state of animals is to engage with Mother Nature and to play. There's no puppy dog who's been out running in the woods every day that suddenly decides she would rather just sit on the couch. It's the same with humans. Your daughter will not choose a video game over playing on a slide or jumping in the ocean unless her physical identity has been lost. Our brains respond to nature in a powerful way. This is something that no video game can match, but that's what they try to do. The forces of McDonald's, Facebook, Fortnite, and a bunch of other things I don't understand are incredibly powerful. These entities don't care about your kids, they care about making money, and they're really good at it. And as mentioned, their job is to addict us to two-dimensional entertainment and to ultra-processed foods. And that word addiction is used purposely. This addiction keeps us away from our natural state as hunter-gatherers and destroys our physical identity. The lack of physical identity affects students' lives, not just physically, but in all these other categories, and most importantly, in academics. We will not have better math scores until we have better health scores. So as I cry out in the book, there is no STEM without fitness. The world has changed, and the decision makers are our age. The decision makers are over the age of 40 and 50, and they have no idea how strong this addiction to these
with everybody apply all.
to this two-dimensional entertainment and these foods is. The only way we're going to get out of this crisis is to not let kids get addicted, to take the kid from the cradle and to not ever let that child lose their physical identity. The world has changed. This is what we don't do in our daily lives. And I know that anybody in this audience can put 20 more things on this list quickly. But the big thing that the kids don't do, besides all these other so-called activities of daily living, is they just don't get outside. Let's spin that up a little bit. So, is there anybody out there who thinks that kids have it better today than we did years ago when we used to play outside, when we rode our bikes, built forts, played hopscotch and stickball? By spending more time indoors, children are responding not only with physical diseases, but as we stated, mental diseases, and as we stated, poor school performance. In 2002, No Child Left Behind took time from PE and gave it to math and English, and what happened to math and English achievement? Nothing, no change. And you know why? Because these kids are not healthy enough to learn. Their brains are not assimilating information because they are sick, because they have diabetes and high blood pressure. There is no STEM without fitness. So I'm going to try to make the case that maintaining physical identity is vital to getting us out of this web of obesity, and our physical education programs are a key component to keeping this identity. Unfortunately, our physical education programs have not only not kept up with the computer revolution, they have often not kept up with changes in the 20th century. Yeah, we can move that past that. Yeah, we can go past that. Thanks, John. Sorry, guys, we're syncing a little bit. So there are a number of reasons why kids are not getting outside. Regarding this concept of control, though most parents say they want their children playing outside, they don't make it easy despite having great memories themselves. Back in the day, I know, it's the only time I'll say that. Parents didn't seem to particularly care back in the day what kids were doing, as long as A, they were not bugging them, B, they came home with the same number of limbs, and C, they left, and C, the cops did not escort them home. There seems to be a level of distrust that children can play outside with some sort of issue. With organized sports, the adults are in control. Another reason children do not play outside is fear, and whether that fear is real or perceived, it's there. Patty and I ran the numbers in the United States a number of years ago when Sam was a boy. We calculated he would have to sit outside on a corner in Plymouth for over 800,000 hours before being abducted. Fear takes a lot of faces. The last time someone was killed by a bear in New Hampshire was 1734, and I suspect that was wilderness myth. But whether real or perceived, the safety concerns, especially of low-income families in predominantly urban and rural areas, provide all the more reason to build strong, innovative PE programs in our schools and get the students outside whenever possible. Finally, regarding this entertainment concept, my father's idea of entertaining us was to give us a piece of sandpaper to work on an old chair he wanted to refinish. But many parents today are more fun to be around than their children's friends, because their children's friends often just want to play video games. So as Bill Maher would say, I don't know this for a fact, but I just know it's true. So these entertainment directors, who are really just adults with money, transportation, and ideas, brought organization to the point where today organized sports are actually one of the main culprits in the obesity crisis. One reason kids don't play outside on their own is that there's no one there to blow the whistle and no one there to watch. Children have forgotten that this is their game, this is their childhood, because adults have made it so much about them. The suburbs were the biggest influence on the growth of organized activity since the population explosion with immigration 50 years earlier in 1900. The suburbs were a perfect breeding ground for youth sports. We had a wealthy post-war economy, a generation looking for escape from years of war. We had green playing fields and a baby boom. This historic change continues today as the majority of organized sports participants are boys and girls from the suburbs. Now, clearly parents thought they were doing something good for their kids, but they were pushed in questionable directions by the sports industrial complex and, of course, the rise of TV. Organized sports have morphed into something that is now a negative for the health of a big part of our population. One of the major issues with organized sports is it is turned into an arms race, and many children, due to money and location, are left out. It takes money to play on travel teams, it takes money to obtain gym and ice and snow time, and the rich keep getting richer. Two important points. Unless you played youth sports today with its substantial price tag, you will probably not start on your local high school team. So just think about that for a second. When we were kids, you played ball, you were running around outside, and then when time came for organized sports, you would play that. And then when time came when you got to high school, you would play on those teams. That's not the case. The kids today, unless they are playing on these travel teams, unless their parents are sinking money and energy into that, are not making the high school teams. And that's even in our area, in Plymouth and in New Hampshire. Secondly, 75% of these kids are going to drop out of organized sports by the age of 15. And as we've noted, they're going to wind up on the couch with a video console in their hands and a bowl of potato chips within reach. So finally, regarding organized sports, if we accept that these sports are crucial to a child's development, why are we not insisting that everyone participate? Again, it should be physical education first and organized sports second. And we have historic perspective on this. The importance of fitness with academic achievement was recognized by the Greeks and the Romans, and then in 1866 by the Beach Boys. We do not need more studies or panels. We have all the evidence we need. Fitness, in this case, physical education, burning calories, running around, is the only solution. So for most of elementary and middle school students, 11 minutes of motion in a 30-minute gym period, so that's 22 minutes a week, because most kids are getting 1 or 2 classes, gym classes a week. I'm writing an article for the Virginia Journal of Education. They say in our state standards in Virginia, they say 150 minutes a week. Well, first of all, then they say, well, you can substitute it with other sports, and then if the kid is doing something else, you can substitute that. So that 150 minutes gets whittled down. But then, even if they do have 3 or 4 30-minute gym classes, that gets whittled down to almost no real activity in those gym classes. So why should you care? Well, first of all, a good PE class is teaching you movement patterns and fitness, and it's absolutely necessary just for life, for getting over that fence, for carrying groceries, for not slipping down the stairs at the age of 30. We lack these children, and even the kids that are playing organized sports, lack basic fitness. Number two, your tax dollars are being spent overwhelmingly. And in my study, it was 86% of your tax dollars are going to sports. And the people that are involved in sports are 20% of the population, depending on what school you look at. Holderness Prep School does not count. Plymouth High School, I think it's their number was of the kids playing 3 sports was right around that 16% mark. So in other words, a small percentage of kids are playing even one sport, but the majority of the money is going to the sports. So as I say here, sorry, money should be spent on PE first. Number 3 reason why you should care, the vast majority of people that show up at a military recruiter are kicked out because they're obese, because they have other medical problems related to obesity. That's an incredible number. And the military, this is not like this is news to the military, but again, we're just not doing anything about it. And oh, by the way, Eisenhower recognized this problem back like 3 or 4 years after the Korean War. He realized with the advent of television, with more people doing blue collar and white collar work that did not involve heavy lifting, that already kids were getting, the soldiers were getting unfit, and the recruits were less fit. So that's why Eisenhower started the President's Council of Physical Fitness, and then Kennedy took that and ran. Number 4 reason why you should be concerned about the lack of PE and the lack of play is that play is involved with brain function, coordination, decision-making, better politicians, perhaps. Number 5, I wouldn't have said that 2 weeks ago. Number 5, sports do not create character. They do not create good citizens. They do not create caring people. I love sports. I played sports. I still play sports. I'm a sports medicine doctor. I have a doctorate in exercise and sports psychology. But sports are sports. Sports are an extension of play. They're not all these other things. Well, what we do need is we need some type of play. And since we have the kids 180 days a year, we've got to give them some play every day that they're in school. And that play has got to be high-level physical education. The decision makers are not looking at the data. Kennedy and Eisenhower looked at the data. The role of public elementary and high schools is not to produce athletes for college and professionals, but to educate our children. And this includes knowing how to exercise. I think we mentioned this earlier. PE is the only profession that hasn't changed significantly in 100 years. This is my bar for high school graduation, that they don't have high blood pressure, that they don't have diabetes, that they don't have obesity, that they be able to do a plank and a squat and a couple of push-ups and maybe 1 pull-up. That is an incredibly low bar. But what they have, if they do all those things, is that means they have a physical identity. So what are we going to do? We have to rebrand physical education and make it more interesting, make it more fun for these kids, and not make it the horror that a lot of you and other people remember with the physical education classes. But the difference again is, it didn't matter whether you did PE 50 years ago because you were still getting exercises, and these kids aren't. So my solution is to involve Silicon Valley, since they got us into a lot of this mess, and rebrand it. So in conclusion, the world has changed. Kids don't play outside, but they should. Adults and money have tainted play. Organized sports are part of the problem, not part of the solution. Public school PE is the only hope. Lack of physical fitness affects us all. Our children are truly addicted to bad food and screen time. We cannot solve this health crisis with a no. We need to solve this with a yes. We need to let students keep their physical identity. And the best way to do that, as my friend Isaac would point out, is to keep them in motion. The only way we can affect this is with a high energy physical education program for every child, every day, every year of school. The decision makers, superintendents, principals, teachers are my age, but the world has changed drastically, not just in the past 50 years, but in the last 15 years. And oh, by the way, human evolution has not kept up with the changes that Apple and other companies want. And Apple can roll out a new version every 12 months, but we can't. You are not a non-athlete by the age of 7, but this is how children are identifying themselves. Obesity is an expensive and a dangerous national health concern, and we need to maintain, again, if I haven't said it 20 times already, I'll say it again, we need to maintain our inborn physical identity. So that's it. Hopefully that's some fuel for thought. We can put on the other screen and take some questions. Thanks, I'm gonna stop. All right. Come
Okay.
after me. Come after me. Tell me why I'm wrong.
So I don't know if you're allowed to unmute yourself, but you can certainly write in the chat. And boy, the one screen that I saw that you flashed by and you really didn't address was when you said that if a PE, physical education teacher from 100 years ago were to come, I think it's even 50 years ago, would come into 2020 and look at a PE class today, they'd be horrified, because probably part of the time is spent sitting there, and I don't even know, maybe kids are sitting there with their phones and texting their friends during PE. Probably. I don't know what they're doing. But anyway, you've got a great message.
Thanks, Betsy. Yeah, it's absolutely horrifying. And the PEs, the teachers that are coming out of the universities today have not gotten dumber. The curriculum at Plymouth State University and the curriculum at Springfield College is brilliant. These teachers come out so well trained on so many levels for physical education, but then they get brought into these schools and they're given, so a high school PE teacher, which there aren't many of them left, but a middle school PE teacher for sure, if they get the kids from elementary school, these kids are so unhealthy and they don't know how to move and they don't know how to exercise. And so we're asking these PE teachers then to do this reclamation project. And again, it's just like giving a 6th grade teacher someone who doesn't know how to read. And one of the things I said about the planks, etc., is that this is a 6th grade reading level. Graduating from high school, being able to do some push-ups and some sit-ups and not have diabetes, not have high blood pressure, that's a 6th grade reading level. I'm not asking to graduate Olympic athletes. I'm just asking to graduate kids who are healthy. I don't think that's a stretch in America in 2020 or in any Western country. Yeah.
So there's a comment here. Can we get kids to play from 3 to 5 every afternoon? That's when we played.
No is the answer. Because they're addicted to their video games. My goal on this is that I think that the kids today are lost. I think that this generation is gone. And I don't think spending money on this generation is money well spent. What we have to do is we have to get these kids coming up before they lose their physical identity. And I put that 7 years old out there. That's what some of the studies, my friend Avery Feigenbaum has done a lot of studies on this and is an expert on childhood exercise and physiology. By the age of 7, these kids are being lost. So we've got to get these kids at kindergarten, at 1st grade. We're already losing them at that point. They're already getting addicted in preschool. But if we can catch them then, we might be able to catch them. And then if we can keep their physical identity going. But I taught one of the PE teachers that I talked to for this book, and she is quoted in the book. She had her students, and she's high school, she had her students wearing beanies, and she makes them flip up their hats because they were wearing just what you talked about, Betsy. They had earbuds in. They were talking to their friends, you know, in PE class. It's almost impossible. And not that I don't think it's worth fighting. I want the parents, I want the superintendents, I want us all fighting the good fight right now. But in truth, I think we've lost it. I think we took our eyes off the ball. And in 2007, and we didn't know what was happening, but in 2007, when that first iPhone came out, it hit us in the face, and we've never recovered. And they bring out a new one every year, and we have not recovered. And I don't think we can recover. I think we've got to go to the young kids.
Dan, we have a few more questions here on the chat.
Yeah,
one is from Patty Biederman. Is Liz Savage able to make a difference at Interlakes High School? So I guess we could have, I think I saw Liz Savage's name there. She could answer herself.
By the way, just to let everybody know, Liz was a huge part of this book, and has written the PE section in the book. So yes, we have a superstar PE teacher involved. This is
Nice.
not just me. So Liz, can you come up and answer that?
Well, I think I can make a difference for the students that walk in the gym, but I don't see them all. And especially this year, I see very few of them, just with schedules and COVID and trying to battle that. We have an incredibly supportive superintendent who's pushing movement all the time. We've started a wellness program after school that will start actually after winter break. So I am fighting the fight too. So I 100% love this book. I do everything I can to get kids to move the entire time they're in the gym. So I think I could probably say that I'm helping those that walk in the gym door, but I don't see everybody.
Can I ask a
Yeah.
follow-up on this?
Sure.
So when you say kids aren't walking through the door, are they able to opt out of PE? Or they just don't show to class?
The high school, they're only required to take a certain amount of credits. So that's grade 9 through 12. And for middle school, normally I see them every other day, which is a nice setup for about 40 minutes. However, this year I see one group for a week, and then I don't see them again for a month due to the pandemic and just what we're trying to organize for staying safe.
There's another question or a comment actually from Michelle Thompson. And she says, can we create a mindset with parents and kids that there's no bad weather, only bad clothing, and ditch the idea that we only go outside when? That sounds like the Blue Heron School over at the Science Center.
Well, the deal is that that's absolutely what we have to do. But what you're really saying, Michelle, is the parents have to be part of it. And that's absolutely key. Not just the parents, but the lunch ladies and the custodians and the classroom teachers and the specials teachers. And I can never remember, they're not called specials anymore, they're called something else. But the music teachers and the art teachers, everybody has to be part of it, because this is what's going to make the next great musician. In other words, you're not going to be a great musician if you're not fit. And I would venture to say that Yo-Yo Ma and Chopin and Stevie Ray Vaughan were never, Papa Chubby may be a bad example, but these great musicians have to have a certain level of fitness to learn, to become that good and great artists and on and on. In other words, we are so unhealthy right now, and it's going to start to bite Apple, I would think, except that what is Apple doing? Apple's not depending on America to give them their next wave of engineers and programmers. They're getting it from India and other countries because these people are fitter than us and their brains can work better. You know, with American kids, it's horrifying. So absolutely, Michelle, we've got to get these kids, like you say, from the Blue Heron School age, from preschool, and never let them lose their physical identity. And what can Liz do with these kids if they're coming in, you know, once a month, a few times, you know, 1 week a month? That's just terrible. And again, getting back to that 3 to 5 o'clock, that was then the kids. And I was being a little bit cheeky with the entertainment directors, but it's really true. You parents out there, you're too nice. You have to stop being nice. Like you say, Michelle, there's no bad weather. Go outside and play. And parents are too fun today, and they take too much of an interest in their kids. I'm sure this is like the most politically incorrect thing you could say, but by doing that, by being that helicopter or that snowplow parent, the kid is not getting the play and the organizational skills that they need to do. If the adult has to blow the whistle for them to know when to play, that's terrible. Yeah.
Dwayne Ford had a question: how do we sleep more and eat better? I don't know if there's an answer to that one, Dan, but give it a whirl.
Yeah, that's great. I just gave a talk a couple of months ago to a bunch of athletic trainers and about sleep. And so I wound up doing a lot of you know, research preparing for that talk. And it really is you know, such an important part of their lives. And when you talk to the kids, and you know, and as you know, the science is that you should turn off that computer, turn off any of that screen input at least 30 minutes, and better yet 60 minutes before you go to bed. Now, if Mr. Ford asks any of his students at Holderness School, or if you ask any of the kids out there, they're on that phone right until the bitter end, and that bitter end can be, you know, whatever time. That's horrifying. And these phones and these video games and whatever, the two-dimensional entertainment is really changing our brains. And when they do put these people into these functional MRI machines where they can look at their brain waves and the stimulus and everything, our brains are actually being changed. But again, that 200,000 years of evolution is not going to change quickly. And so I suspect that 50 or 100 or 1,000 years from now, maybe our brains will change, you know, that much to get used to this incredible speed computer world that we live in. But that's not the case in 2020. So we can, and that's not the case in any of our lifetimes. So right now, getting kids to bed without screen exposure and making sure they have a chunk of time is huge. Then the next thing is the ultra processed foods, and that is something that they have been doing a brilliant job with. They gave out how many meals tonight?
112.
The Plymouth area.
It's Local Foods Plymouth.
Local Foods Plymouth gave out 112 healthy meals tonight, and that has been building. And whether it's the farmers markets and all this, but we're really not talking about us, because we have access to Market Basket and Hannaford and fresh food during the summers. A lot of great farms. The folks out in where am I thinking, out in Dorchester, all the great things that people are doing to that. The kids we really also need to worry about are the inner city kids that live in food deserts and they shop. Their parents are shopping for dinner at the dollar store and at the convenience store, the bodegas, and that's the most horrifying thing for the food. But again, just like those people on the other side of the screen addicting your kids, these ultra processed food people have addicted us. I mean, you know, they've done the science. They know what our mouths do. They know where our taste buds are. It's a brutal, brutal battle.
Well,
Is that pessimistic enough?
that's really pessimistic.
really pessimistic, but it's
Well,
true.
we'll get to, let's turn around to the optimism after we get through the questions here and comments. So Michelle Thompson reports that currently the local elementary school kids are only getting 1 trimester of PE for a couple days a week. That's in 1st grade.
Yeah.
1 trimester. So that seems crazy.
This is something that we can affect. And we're going to be introducing legislature in Concord, hopefully in the next few months, and it's going to get shot down. But then we can introduce it again, and we can get more people to introduce it. That's at the top. But where we also have to work is at the bottom, at the grassroots. And when you take this book into the principal and you take this book into the superintendent, sorry, Kayla, and you say, and you take it to the school board, why are we not doing this? Here's the data. Nobody argues about this. I was having a discussion with a public health expert, and I literally was walking along with the dogs in the woods, and I'm talking to this guy, and I said, and I was telling him about what Liz is doing and over at Interlakes, and I said, yeah, Charlie, you know, we're doing this little program about. He exploded out of the phone. We don't need any more studies. We don't need any more data. We have all the data, what we need. Everybody knows this. Everybody knows that fitness is linked to academics, that fitness is linked to decreased incidence of diabetes, that fitness is linked to decreased depression and anxiety. We know this, and yet, as you say, Michelle, we're giving our kids nothing in return. It's absolutely insane. And I think that, if you don't mind, Betsy, I think that the physical education part is an easier argument, but what nobody has ever said before is taking on the fact that it's the sports that are getting all the press. And again, it's that 80-20 split. 20% of the kids are playing the sports, but we're paying, all of our tax monies are going into that. And that's the problem. And if we would take some of that money out of sports and give it and make sure 100% of our kids are getting PE every day, now they're healthy enough to do sports. And now maybe more than 20% of the kids will actually do organized sports. And then we'd really have a revolution.
Yeah. Well, we have a number of, I think, 3 or 4 more questions, comments here. I think Patty O'Neill was just trying to give you a hint that it's unified arts, that thing you were looking for, couldn't quite get.
I'll never remember that.
Patty Biederman, have you ever considered contacting the Blue Zone Solution to possibly start to change this area to a healthy lifestyle? Everyone would have to buy in. I don't know what the Blue Zone Solution is, but maybe Patty or Dan or somebody could explain it.
Yeah, Patty, would you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. There's a book out called The Blue Zones that were written by a gentleman who is in connection with National Geographic, identifying 5 areas as he rode a bike around the world with his brother. Identified 5 areas worldwide, one of which is in California, Japan, Greece, Costa Rica, and Spain, where people lived longer, lived a healthier lifestyle. He identified in each area probably 5 major things. One was sense of community, one was less technology, one was sense of family, a plant-based diet. And as a result of the Blue Zone book, there's now a book out called The Blue Zone Solution, where they're trying to identify whole communities that want to buy in to become a Blue Zone. And it's a buy-in from basically top to bottom, from our politicians, from our restaurants, from our local markets, everybody in you would also build better sidewalks, bike paths. So it's a total buy-in where your whole community wants to change the whole lifestyle of the community into a healthier community. I know there's been a few people on the campus of Plymouth State that have done a lot of different stuff with the blue zones and have talked a lot about it. There's certainly, it would be a great way to consider changing or having a solution for this area where I know Lori wrote about its entire generations and, you know, how do you change that? What I would love to talk to, Dan, is what's a solution for maybe our area? And is there little successes that then we could build on bigger successes? So there's actually some people out there to help with the blue zones.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think it's brilliant. And I visited the one in Costa Rica. And as you say, and as Michelle was alluding to, it's that pura vida, as they call it in Costa Rica. It's that lifestyle, and this is just what you do. And one of the things I talk about in the book is that our school motto has to be, our school is in motion. You know, this is what we do. We are active, we are participatory, we are egalitarian, we are all of these things. We are outdoors the vast majority of the time. This is what we do. And that's all part of right, that community and that top to bottom type of buy-in, and I think our community specifically with the college and with so many of the things that we have going on, you know, is a good possibility for that sort of education and that sort of participation. And but I think that really what you're saying with the blue zone is that there's more to this than, you know, just PE class or just, you know, playing sports or just this or this, that. It's everything. And it can happen, but we've got to recognize it. And every time, Michelle Obama recognizes with the food, and what happened to her, she got beaten down and she wasn't really able to take on the big food. And, you know, Sodexo and these other big companies, again, they're not giving us what we really need. And our politicians are not pushing them to give us what they need. Sodexo will do whatever we tell them to do, but they're going to give us a lesser product, particularly when our school budgets are tight and on and on. And you know, it's so, like you say, it really gets complicated, and it really needs everybody pulling in the same direction. Yeah. Peter, do you have or Betsy, do you have?
We have two more very interesting comments, questions. One's from Lori Ford. Which is kind of really sad, but if we have an entire generation of humans that are not healthy, and we've sort of given up on them and they are diseased, how can we expect them to raise a healthy generation or have kids that have any kind of, as you say, fitness identity?
Yeah, physical identity.
Yeah, physical identity, whatever it was.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're absolutely right. And that's why we have to do it now and get, and that's why we have to do it through our schools and through our politics and through our legislature. We can't let the parents run this. The parents have lost the battle. Again, for the past, what was it, 13 years since those iPhones came out, we've been losing it. And again, we weren't paying attention and we were sucker punched. And the adults have lost their physical identity to a large extent. And that's why we can't depend on them to raise their children with their physical identity. But again, we've got Mother Nature on our side. These 2-year-olds are, it doesn't matter how big the parents are. You'll see, you know, 2 obese parents, but you see a little kid, a 2-year-old jumping around. That 2-year-old is still salvageable, and we've got to get that kid and make them part of the solution, because you're right. Otherwise, we can't depend on the parents. And this is really sad. And I understand that I'm saying a lot of sad, pessimistic things,
You are.
but I'm saying it because everybody else has been afraid to say this stuff. Nobody wants to, people have been saying for years, academics is tied to fitness. Oh yeah, so what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? What are your policies? What are you done? You haven't done anything about it, and things have just gotten worse. And now, as Liz points out with COVID, things have just gotten even worse, if that's possible. And No Child Left Behind, things got worse. We keep getting worse. So what I talk about in the book is what we can do is to write letters, write them from the top to the bottom, to the superintendents, to the principals, to the teachers, to the politicians, to the PTA, to the school board. Get to your school board, bring the book. I'll give them a copy of the book if they're willing to read it and make some changes. We've got to write these letters. We've got to start the revolution. And again, I use that word revolution purposely. This really has to be this. And as Lori points out, we don't really have any choice if we're okay the way things are going, but it's going to cost us billions and billions of dollars. And oh, by the way, we're not willing to have a proper healthcare scheme in this country, but we're still letting these kids get sicker and sicker. So Betsy, I've decided that I'm okay with being the person to say that the emperor has no clothes. And because everybody else seems to be afraid to say any of these things.
Dr. O'Neill, I'm going to interrupt. You have a comment from a high school student. He says, I'm involved in multiple unified sports teams. Can you go more into depth as to why these teams are more of an issue than a solution?
Because it's only a small percentage of the kids that are doing that. So the 20%, again, if we want to break it down to 80-20, the 20% of the kids that are playing sports generally have a physical identity, and they're probably going to be okay going forward. But it's the 80% that we're losing, and you, with your physical identity in high school, in another 10 years when you're paying taxes and paying health insurance, you're going to be paying for the 80% of your pals. So what we have to do is we have to get that number switched around and make sure that 80% or more of our kids are healthy and are healthy enough to play sports. And so we have to stop conflating sports with education and organized sports with education. Organized sports belongs in the community. We should have, Plymouth teams and Holderness teams and community teams and Pemmy Baker teams. That's where the organized sports belongs. It does not belong at the high schools and at the elementary schools, because only a small percentage of the kids participate in that. And oh, by the way, the sports are not getting you exercising, cranking up your brain to learn. So in other words, when you're standing out in right field, waiting for that ball to come, you're not getting fit. You have to rev up your brain, rev up your muscles rather, and that's going to rev up your brain to be ready to get smarter. So I hope that answers your question. Again, I'm a sports medicine guy, but it's not getting it done, and nobody is coming up and saying it, because that's the truth. The truth is that sports is working for a small percentage of our population, but is taking a huge percentage of our monies.
Okay, I think there's one more question, and this is a great one to end on, and it's just about 6 o'clock. So we're going to do this because it addresses my one concern in listening to you for the past almost an hour. And you started to talk about what could we do about it, and what could we do about it is write letters and send the book to people, et cetera, et cetera. But the other thing is that, maybe, as Michelle Thompson says, maybe we could be starting a movement for movement and get parents to share information together and contact government officials. And actually, I think perhaps you may have sparked enough people tonight to actually take action and start a revolution or whatever. Lori Ford just threw up another one. We'll see if we can get to that. But I'll tell you Lori Ford's question too. You'll have to keep two of them in your mind. It is actually a mindset of activity. Sports. Oh, I see. Sports is a different kind of a beast for fewer involved than PE. I guess that's the point of the difference between organized sports versus the PE. But anyway, different mindset kind of activity, as you're saying.
Right.
So
Now,
anyway, what should we do?
at the website, are the letters and everything on the website? Okay, so survivalofthefit.net, survivalofthefit.net. Go there, and these letters are written for you already. So you can shoot these, you fill in your particular bits, what school, blah, blah, blah. But you'll see all those letters. So go to that website. There's a lot of other content there. I talked to a bunch of other experts on various topics. I talked to school principals and other administrators. So go to the website and download those letters so they're already written and shoot them out to people, because absolutely, I mean, if I've stimulated anybody to get moving on this, I've done my job tonight. And if there's anything that I can do, also my email is on there. Send me an email with any of your again concerns or ideas, because this is not, you know, as Patty Biederman mentioned, there's so many great ideas and so many ways that we can take this, but we've got to start it somewhere. My solution is to start making healthier kids, and then hopefully things will snowball. Yeah. So, well, I can't thank everybody enough for coming. Doing a hometown program like this is really exciting. I'm doing a podcast tomorrow, and it's always nice knowing who's out there and knowing where everybody's coming from. So thanks again. And again, keep my feet to the fire on this.
Thank you very much, Dan.
Thanks, Betsy.
Great program.
All right, great. Are we closing out?
That's up to Adam.
Excellent. I'm going to close out here. So I'm going to push this button.